This is Donna with More Than a Review, and I am just thrilled to be here with Susan Neal. We had met several years ago before the pandemic, and she was sharing both your personal story, I think, which is just adds so much authenticity, in addition to your education background. But I feel like when you've been there, like you relate just to other people that are going through the same thing. So Susan's going to share a little bit about herself and her story, and then we're going to talk about both her most recent book to help children, but she's also written adult books and sold, I think, a ton of copies because we're all going through it. And I think even during the pandemic, like people even struggled more with eating, because I know me working from home, if we bought the food, we were eating it. So you got to almost stop it before you even bring it home.
Definitely.
But Susan, go ahead and tell your story.
Okay, so it was a decade ago when I was turning 50. Next week I turned 60.
Oh, wow.
So, it was a decade ago, and 10 years ago I lost my health. At that point I had 10 medical diagnoses, 2 surgeries, and it was all due to an abscess tooth, and it just poisoned my body, and it took me years to recover. And so 5 years later I began writing out of my passion of how I had lost my health, and I wrote 7 steps to get off sugar and carbohydrates, and that book has sold 17,000 copies in the past 3 years, and it comes out of my passion for wanting to help others improve their health and obtain their optimal weight. I want people to just feel energized and feel well and have a good mental outlook on life, and just have a positive well-being, because that's what God created us for, and He wants us to feel good. And so we can help achieve that through eating God's foods. So that's why I wrote the children's book, Eat God's Foods. It's a picture book for 4 to 8-year-olds, and I want to teach kids, wow, let's eat God's foods that He gave us. He gave us over 100 different vegetables, 50 fruits, wow, and not to eat the food manufacturers' processed food, because they have stripped the nutrients from them, and it does not provide nutritional value for adults or children.
And I know when I did the coming off sugar, I was just shocked at how many of the foods have it in there. That you would eat salsa, like you don't think of salsa as having sugar, so it is. It's amazing. So
almond butter.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you put sugar in almond butter? Because the food manufacturers want us to buy their food. They are interested in their bottom line, and they are not interested in our health.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about what led you to write the kids' book, and kind of maybe some of the statistics you were seeing that you wanted to impact.
So I've been on a mission for, over 5 years, and in that 5-year period of time, I've seen the Center for Disease Control statistic go from 40% of Americans suffer from obesity to 42%. So the statistic is rising. And I want to help individuals not to have that happen. So I thought, I love kids. I taught swim lessons for a decade. They are so much fun. They just make you laugh so much. And they're so smart, man. They're sponges. They just pick up stuff so quick. So I wanted to teach them about eating God's foods, and understand what the food manufacturers are trying to get us to do. They're trying to get us to hooked on their food, like with the sugar. And I also found that 20% of children from 2 to 19 suffer from obesity in the United States. From 2 to 5-year-olds, it's 13%. So, wow. And then it goes up from there, I think 18, 19%, the next age group. And so I wanted to affect them when they're young, because kids, in their formative years, it's so much easier to help them to eat well and eat the good foods instead of the ones that are harmful.
So I was going to ask, so you had talked about chronic illness too. So are you seeing a correlation between the obesity and eating, this processed food and health concerns?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, eating well, eating healthy foods, and so it's diet and exercise are two components that we have control over, and those are the two major factors that you can control. You can't control your genetics, whether you have a gene for macular degeneration or something like that, but you can control the diet and the exercise. And those definitely affect the chronic illness, because the chronic diseases that go along with obesity are type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure and heart disease, and those can be positively infected and even reversed. I had a reader of the 7 steps to get off sugar and carbohydrates contact me, and he said, I've been a diabetic type 2 for 7 years. I followed your plan in this book, and I no longer have to take anything for my diabetes. It was reversed. I was amazed. After 7 years, it was reversed. What a story.
Yeah.
What a story.
So if you were going to give everybody like one tip, other than to buy the books, because I have both of the carb books, the Get Off Carb and Sugar, what would you want to leave? What message would you want to leave people with?
Well, it's the simple. It's the eat God's food, but it's also drink the water that He gave us. Drink filtered, delicious water. Don't go and have those frappuccinos and the things that are laden with sugar and bad fats. We want to eat the nuts and the seeds and the avocados and the olive oil. Those are wonderful fats for our brain, and they're so important for children's brains because their brains are growing, that 4 to 8 years so much. So we want to avoid any kind of beverage. Drink your coffee or your tea, but just have it black or with some stevia, maybe a little honey, and avoid all the sodas and everything else that we can drink that is also not beneficial. Yeah. God gave us water.
So Susan, I noticed in the book that you have recipes and activities, so kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so with each section, do you know how kids ask a lot of questions? Why this? Why that? Well, it's like, why did God give us fruit? Why did God give us vegetables? Why did God give us water to drink? Well, after all these sections of vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, meat, grains, there is an activity. So they can seek and find fruit, or for nuts and seeds, there's pictures of the nuts and the name of the nuts, and they have to, match it. And do they match it right? There's seeds in there and the little pictures, and you're like, even adults will learn what the nuts and seeds are. And then with the vegetables, there's 50 different vegetables, and I have them count all the ones that they've eaten. And then count all the ones that they haven't tried, because there's 100 that God gave us. And then after each section, after the activity, because you want to keep kids engaged, so with each section you have an activity, then there's a little recipe that you can do with your child. So let's cook banana quinoa oatmeal. So there's a breakfast item. Another one is to make homemade almond butter out of nuts. Another one is to freeze berries and make fruit smoothies. So there's all these different activities and recipes for kids to do, and for parents to take time with their kids in the kitchen, because they love that. Kids love to get up on that stool right up on the counter and be whipping things up. And for the older kids, because this is like 4 to 8, I teach them how to read food labels. And then they need to identify the artificial, all the bad stuff. I have a list of the bad stuff, the artificial flavors, the artificial colors, sugar, dextrose, all the stuff. So then they have to be an investigator, and they're reading so that equips them. When they go to the grocery store and they see that almond butter, or what was it that they
salsa,
the salsa, they can read, Mom, there's sugar in this. So they can help. I know for my kids that when we would go to the grocery store, they'd want this granola bar or this cereal or that, and I'm like, read the back, how many grams of sugar? 36. Nope, it has to be under 10 or under. So that helps them to understand what they can, put in the buggy for the grocery store and what they can't. So I wanted to make it fun for the kids and the whole family.
That is excellent. And I think that almost even, it made me think of the Dave Ramsey, there's no money in the envelope, or you're looking at the box of food and, oh, no, it's got the wrong number on it. So it kind of takes it out of the parent, like that it's not a bad parent, Mom doesn't let me eat anything.
Right.
This is God's food, and this is healthy or it's not healthy. Yeah.
Right.
Good for your body or not good for your body.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys.